Okay, so it's time for the annual Pride Month video. Hello everyone, hope you're well. But yeah, we're in a state now where Pride is obviously taken over as a more corporate event. And so while it initially was starting out as a social justice movement in the 60s, in America, alongside that of the social justice movements of the African American and other oppressed groups at the time, it really started to take fruition into what we really kind of recognize it as now in the 1980s. Now, the fact it's been corporatized is not surprising. Every social issue has been corporatized now because big companies realize they can make money off representing people. People feel safe with a certain product. They feel represented by a certain product. Therefore, they affiliate with a certain product. Look at Coca-Cola, look at Coors, look at multiple other brands that have really pushed in certain demographics the pride, like onus, should we say, the pride imaging, messaging, coding, if you will. Blizzard even with Overwatch, this kind of stuff. So resultantly what we've got is you've got this weird cross area where there are people that are genuinely trying to push it for reasons that are just, they probably have a lot of workers that are in the LGBTQIA plus community. We're just going to call it the LGBTQ community for the sake of this video because it's an alphabet soup otherwise. Yeah, well, that's probably not something you can say, but regardless. So yeah, we're in this position now where it's being pushed as this, and just need to clarify this. I'm a member of said community. That doesn't concern you what area it is, but just saying this isn't a hit piece, and please just let anything that is said here just land first before you jump to conclusions, please. That would be nice. So back to the corporatization of this gig. Well, the thing is with the corporatization is, again, companies at the end of the day need to make money. That's their whole purpose. And so being able to potentially compromise or infiltrate certain groups and make them kind of cater towards them is a way of making money. It's advertising. It's what's been done since the 1920s. But the result of which is it feels quite disingenuous. It feels like you're taking advantage of people that are already taken advantage of. It's another thing to suggest that the pride community is one of those things that is very easy for politicians and just people in general to attack. So it feels like almost being too friendly with that in ways that don't feel genuine just seems like another, again, taking advantage, taking the mick. And in some ways that's worse than people that are just outright hateful, that are outright problematic. So this corporatization and like the government involvement with it in terms of local pride events, and personally only really able to talk about Wales when it comes to this. But when it comes to pride events, it's certainly in Wales, they are put on by the councils. They are put on by local areas. Obviously there are gigs done by pubs and bars and all this other stuff, and again, kind of corporatization, but again, it does depend on the bar and the club. Say, for example, One Eyed in Swansea, or Heaven in Wine Street, the Gaydar in Cardiff, all these places, they are obviously like pride places, so it's not really corporatization, it's not really them selling out in the first place, because that is their entire purpose. The result of which is you do get a few more places that are doing things and pushing that kind of agenda to get people in the doors, buying drinks, consuming, whatever. And it's the same earlier as mentioned with, your Overwatches, your Coca-Colas, your Coors Lights, all this kind of stuff. It's just to push products. Which, again, those feelings have already been expressed, what the feelings are about that. Now, we're in an interesting spot, furthermore, with the issues of the actual LGBTQ community as a whole. Now, and again, please just let this land, because that on paper sounds really bad, but it's a very, very broad community, right? If you just look at the 4 acronyms, the ones that were initially set up, and it's obviously since branched out, and that's, personally would argue, it's only a good thing that they've been able to expand this bracket, but, so it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. And then it became queer, and then a few other things. Sorry, not hugely knowledgeable about all the acronyms of it, but basically it's a large group of people that are very different. So if you're looking at, say, for example, the entire spectrum of it, you'll have asexual people, you'll have transgender people, you'll have lesbians, you'll have gender nonconformists, you'll have just people that are generally queer. And so the result of which is that a lot of those people actually don't really have anything in common. And it's this socially engineered kind of like bracket to just enclose everyone that isn't fitting into hetero, like, normative positions, is just put in a massive bracket of, oh, you're not straight, you're not cis, over there. And it's kind of interesting how that's become a thing. Certainly for like labeling, it just makes it so much easier to just say, oh, well, back in the day, people would just be, oh, you're gay. And to be honest, like, that's kind of fine. Personally, don't really have a problem with it when people say that. Obviously, can only speak for yours truly. But other people might do. Other people might find it triggering. But there's certain things that, you know, like, in and amongst people in the community, you'll call each other F-slurs, because it's like, that's what you call each other. If you're around mates that are also in the spheres, it's like, it's what you do, you know? And it's just stuff like that. But it feels really disingenuous that it's such a, again, massive box that everyone has to kind of fit in for the sake of labeling. And obviously, like, yeah, social labels have always been a thing. It's how the human brain categorizes things. It's how we become the apex species on this planet. Is being able to categorize things. But these categorizations don't really feel like they make sense. Now, if you're going to categorize people and it's off, like, difference of sexuality and they're kind of similar, it's like, oh, you like people of the same gender as you, then sure, that makes sense. But then when it's like, you're putting together people that are like lesbians and asexual, and you're putting together people that are transgender, and the thing as well, like, these aren't mutually exclusive things. You can be like an aromantic person that is transgender, or you can be a non-binary person that's asexual, or you can be like all these things. And ultimately, like, the brackets are quite big and they're interchanging, and they're kind of, it's one of those things, you know, you hear people say everyone's on the spectrum, and it kind of feels like a bit of a cop-out answer. But it does feel like everyone, to an extent, is on this kind of wavelength of queerness, if you want to call it that. And it's interesting. And just a wrapping up point, this is kind of maybe a bit of a weird thing to say, so again, please just hear the full thing out and then formulate your opinions, and if you disagree, that's absolutely fine. Don't think it's a problematic thing to say, but the internet has become a thing where we're able to categorize things so easily, and we're able to find other people like us so easily. But it's led to potentially, like, new terms and new phrases coming out for very ultra niche specific things, because we're coming out into a world now where, because we have the internet, we're able to search for very specific things. If you need a very specific type of hairbrush, say for example, or you need a very specific prescription of glasses, then you can get that very easily. And the result of which is, when it comes to your sexual needs or your needs socially, it's so much easier to find things. And that's why there's so many different things now in terms of terminology that seem very similar. And it's the whole thing from an outside perspective. A lot of people don't understand the difference between pansexuality and bisexuality, for example. And many other different terms that are becoming more and more common. Many different types of fetishes that are becoming more and more common. And listen, the LGBTQIA plus community is not a fetish. That's not what's being said here. But there is a level of which that certainly people from the outside see it as that slightly. And the result of which is that the community now is so almost custom tailored that it does beg the question, how much of this is now a movement that's actually going to be able to keep the wheels on for a long time and stay as a meaningful thing, rather than as a way to identify yourself versus just a criteria to search for other people for. And that's somewhere that we might be getting towards. And if we do get towards the latter, it could be quite a big social issue. Now, just going to end it on this one last thing, actually. This is slightly left of the curve, and this is unrelated to Pride Month as a concept, but it's interesting as well, going into teaching now, seeing that for sex education, you're having to teach people about different ways of doing said deed, with who you're doing it, how you're doing it, and also it was interesting, we got kind of a briefing on choking and stuff like that, and it's just interesting the direction we're going in, certainly with life in general, and there's not really an intersection between the pride community and that. Besides the fact, obviously, they're like, if you are going to have gay sex or lesbian sex, then preparing the students for that and what have you, because obviously that's an important thing to do rather than just preparing them for heterosexual sex, which they may never have. So yeah, it's just interesting. But yeah, as for Pride Month itself, the general consensus was it's a bit strange that the LGBTQIA community as a bracket is so broad, and the corporatization of such a bracket is a little bit uncomfortable, and also government involvement with Pride events is a little bit uncomfortable, seeing as back in the day, not like the back in my day, fucking yeah, all that stuff, but yeah, it's just interesting how it used to be kind of more small localized events where people would put it on themselves. Now it's a state-run event, and obviously taxpayers are gonna have to pay for it. A lot of people aren't happy about that, and it's also the fact that it does feel kind of, hey, vote for us, we're putting on events for you. Look what we're doing for you, and it's like, nah, dude, that's not it. That's not it. But yeah, if you enjoy it, more power to you. If you don't enjoy it, great. Don't personally enjoy it that much either. It just feels like kind of another reason to be a clown in the box, really. But yeah, thanks for watching. Yeah, all right, that's that. Cheers. See you soon.